Okay, because these are being recorded, I think I'm going to go ahead and get started. So the agenda is pretty much what it always is. Enhancements since the last meeting. We didn't have one in July, so these are the changes since June, and then a tip of the month. So I'll go through all of the new features and fixes first, and then ones that lend themselves to me demoing, I'll do a demo of. So starting with fixes for testing, I'm not sure if anyone will have noticed this or not, but we've removed the merge option temporarily. So we found a fairly significant issue in the merge, and it was in the way if there was a client-specific task, so a task greater than 100,000 in the environment, in the project that you were merging from, that had a matching number in current state, and they weren't actually the same task. It was orphaning them. So we're working on that fix, but until we have that fix there, we removed merge. The next thing was when you ran the scenario scripts report, in the outcomes column and in the interface transaction column, there's a whole bunch of HTML text. And so that made it not good if you were going to export from Excel and use it as an Excel test script. So that's been corrected. I don't know how many people were aware of this, but you can change a position for a test step after you've created the test round, which is a good thing. So if you accidentally selected, physician, orthopedic surgeon, and it really was instead the anesthesiologist, and those are two different people on your team, you can change that position during the test round. But what it did was write a whole bunch of basically blank rows to the test report. So we've corrected that. It doesn't do that anymore, but it still does write out to the test round audit so that you will see that somebody chose to change the position. If you're using the position in org settings and you export them to Excel and then you update the spreadsheet with a paste from clipboard, it used to remove the information in the parent column. So I'm not sure how many people are aware, but the information in the parent column drives how things sort on the test planning report. So that's now been fixed. When you add a scenario to a test round, it now forces you to rerun the test planning report prior to doing the test planning invites so that your invites will be correct. So if you had, 3 scripts on your dashboard already, and you added one for ambulatory, for example, it makes you rerun the test planning report so that those ambulatory positions will be added in to the invites. We added the ability to move a scenario out a certain number of days. So oftentimes if your scripts aren't balanced and you've got, say, like a shortness of breath and a cabbage that are both in the ED, and the ED had another script that that they're not going to get to. So instead of it just showing overdue for the whole round of testing, you can take your ED treat and release and say, okay, I'm going to move it to start on Wednesday. I'm going to move it out 2 days. We added the ability to add an attachment to a test step or a scenario step from a right-click option. So that was a feature that we had in TransIT 4 that we lost when going to TransIT 5. It's slightly different now based on client feedback. It used to be that you added it at the task step level, and then it was not that easy to get rid of when it was no longer necessary. What I used to always demo was the ambulance icon from FirstNet, because there's 2 ambulance icons that look fairly similar. And so now instead of putting it on the task and it being there forever, you put it on that first time that you go live with FirstNet, and you show it as a attachment on the test step so that the person can view the screenshot from there. You can now see and access both scenarios and workflows that a task is used in from the task page. And I will show that because that is fairly important. And functional test rounds now allow you to enter both a start and end date. And that's supposed to be for showing you when a test script is in jeopardy of not finishing on time now. So up until that release, it was just showing you a start date with no end date and no clocks were present. When you remove a scenario from a test round Any positions that are no longer required for that test round are removed from the roster for that test round. So again, if you remove the test script, it's obviously better to rerun the test planning report and redo invites before you send them out. We made a big change for test round invitations to be based off the roster and not off the user records. So what that allows you to do is if you've got, 5 analysts that are supporting FirstNet, for example, and only one of them is helping you out in your test round and the other 4 aren't available for whatever reason, you can remove the 4 from that roster for that test round and it'll correctly send the invite to only that one person who's actually helping out. We corrected an issue that was preventing SMS notifications to be pushed from the clicking of the head icon beside the test step. It was sending out email notifications, but it was not sending out texts. So if somebody had chosen to only get texts, then they weren't getting that notification. The order of the options available from the right click in the dashboard column of a test round from the test round page was changed. So the order that you're supposed to do these things in is, first of all, fill out your roster for that test round, then run the test planning report, and then send out or create your invites to send out. And so we changed the order of them to match that so that it made more sense. Moving on to fixes for plans. Previously, when you created a spreadsheet plan, it didn't open to the spreadsheet page, and that's now been corrected. And when you change the status of an activity from, if you've right-clicked an activity to do edit activity, and you change the status to be issue, when you click save on your edits to that activity, it automatically pops open the issue page to allow you to add that issue. Previously, what you had to do was once you saved the issue, you needed to go back from the spreadsheet page and right click and choose log issue. And you can still do that if you've done edit on the line, but now this is just a slightly better workflow for when you're using that right click edit activity option. Also in the spreadsheet plans, you can now filter on blank for the assigned column, which obviously makes a lot of sense to know which activities nobody's assigned to yet. And then there were significant performance enhancements for plans. We had a client working on a plan that had, I think it was like 75,000 activities in it. And so we had to do some performance improvements to get that to work. Moving on then to the tip of the month. It's always been that at the beginning of each day, so when there were 0 steps executed for that day for that test script, that it didn't send out a reminder. And so because of that, a good thing to do is, 10 minutes into the round of testing, if you see those clocks start to appear, to push out notifications to people. And if you're not sure how to push out notifications, I'll show that as well. But a lot of people are working off the notifications as opposed to doing what our recommendation is, which is keep the dashboards on, one of your displays and keep it on your position view. But a lot of people are more now counting on the notifications. And so you don't want to have somebody have a test script wait 3 or 4 hours because the person was the first person due up in the day and they didn't really realize that they had a step to execute because they didn't get a notification. Before I move on to the demo, are there any specific questions that anyone has either about anything that I talked about now or any other issues that you have with TransIT that you'd like to ask about? Okay, if not, then I will
Hey, Patty.
try to,
Can you just say that one more time on that last update for at the beginning of the day?
yeah.
Who
So
needs
if
to do
it's
that? The test coordinator or each tester?
No, the testing coordinator. So
Okay.
if, it's the beginning of your day and it's like this, it's nobody's working on anything. There's clocks for everything. If it's showing that you've done 0 steps for today, 0% complete over here, and you can see that this says 15 and this has nothing, 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 nothing. So no one's, like these 3 down here, right? So
Yep.
no one's done anything on these 3 test scripts for today. Because it's the first step of the day, they didn't get a notification. So we have an enhancement request in to send notifications at the beginning of the start of the test round each day. But then we also have another request in that says you want to be able to say, does your testing start at 8? Does it start at 9? Does it start at 10? So probably we'll do those 2 fixes together. So in the meantime, what you do, because this person didn't get an invite or didn't get a reminder yet, you click inside the test script. And when you click this head here, it pops open a box and it will allow you to send a email. If there's an email showing or a text message, as long as you click this box, it'll send a reminder to that person. So that person didn't get a reminder. So you can hear my phone just went off, and in a second, my email is going to go off. And so it's just like the regular reminders, except in this case, if you don't push it, it's not going to be sent.
Got
Does
it.
that make
Thank you.
sense?
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, and that head can be used at any time. So again, if you know that there was a reminder sent for this and it's a half an hour later and no one's done anything yet, you can always go in and use that head icon to push any messages that you need to push. I mean, it's also good to be able to go in and use that little head icon instead of going back to the roster just to quickly see, okay, it's Ira Silver who I'm waiting on in this. And then if the person's already been notified, that's also not a bad time to notify that person's manager. Hey, this is the person you told me who's going to be executing steps for me. It's a half an hour later and she hasn't done her steps. Can you please escalate or whatever? Okay. So again, I talked about the fact that you can't merge anymore. So merge was a right-click option here, and it's been removed. And as soon as we fixed the bug in the merge, it will come back and be there. Probably not next month, but hopefully the month after, we'll probably do one of these sessions on merge, because I know a lot of people are creating projects and don't really understand exactly how they're supposed to work or what to do when you're getting ready for a merge. So we'll probably do a session on that. So if we go here to the reports that we've run, I've got the scenario scripts run that I ran. If I go in and open it, then you'll see this is the header page, but over here on the script page, Brian can tell you there used to be a whole bunch of HTML garbage in here. And so we've cleaned that up. And again, like, our goal is for no one ever to have to export a test script. But if you were, deciding to not use TransIT anymore, or if you had somebody who really, for some reason, needed to work on it offline, it's got all that garbage out now, and it's clean and can be used. Yeah, so it's not really, the next one was about, maybe I'll show it anyway. So in here, if you've started a round of testing, and if this script said it was supposed to be the RT and it's really not supposed to be, you can actually change the position from here. So if I was going to change it to be the registration clerk, for example, and click save, it used to write out a row to the test report. It no longer does because it was just creating a whole bunch of garbage rows. Then on the org settings under positions, just to make sure everyone understands here, this column that's called parent, it is what drives where the position shows up in your test planning report. It's nothing that you can add to. It's where when we built it, where we put these things. So, if you call anesthesiologist, physician, space anesthesiologist, we've got it in our database as anesthesiologist, and we have this tied to the physician group that we call medical staff office. So if you want your test planning report to make sense and for all the people to be grouped properly in there, your parent row needs to be filled in. So what was happening is that you can right click and you can export this to Excel. do modifications offline and then cut and paste it back in. And when you were doing that, it used to blank out the parent column. So it no longer does that. When you do a test round, so say this is my test round I care about here. If I want to add a script to it, so I can add a script by doing add test script and choosing whatever script it is and then saying add. So if I now wanted to go and do the invites, so I go here and I do test planning invites, it tells me you can't. You have to first of all rerun your test planning before you do your invites. So that again is to make sure that the invites don't get missed for any test scripts that were added. Moving on. The ability to move the scenario out a number of days. So if we go back here and look, you can see these 3 scripts haven't been started yet. And in this scenario, it could have been that, you know, the emergency department had way too many steps to do. So now if we want to move those ones out so that instead of showing that they're not going to finish today, or if you know they're not even going to start today, what you can do is you go back to your test rounds page and you right click on the script and you say move out days. And you can say, you know, 1, 2, whatever number that you want to move it out. And once you've moved it out, it now says it's starting on day 4 instead of starting on day 0, and it will no longer show in the dashboard. So I know that was a client request to add that in as well, so that it made it less jumbled on this row and that you didn't have to put things on hold per se. Because if you're running, you know, 50 scripts and you wanted to move 10 of them out and they were all showing on hold and they had day 1, day 2, day 3, and whatever showing, it was a very jumbled dashboard. So this is a much cleaner way of handling that. So you now have the ability to add a attachment to a test step. So if we go in and you want to add an attachment, you do file attachments and you look on your hard drive for whatever it is that you want to put on there. Do I have anything, you know, whatever you want to attach. And it now shows that there's an attachment there. And so if the tester wants to look at that attachment, they click it, and depending on what their browser settings are, it'll either open, or in my case, I've chosen to have it download. So I have to download and then see what it is. So again, that's way improved over TransIT 4, where that file was always here forevermore. The same with, you know, when you put in new policies and procedures, it's nice to add that policy and procedure the first time that you do the test round, but 10 years later, when the policy and procedure, everybody knows, it's nice to not have it there anymore. So now by attaching it just to a test round, it has the ability to have you have it when you want it and not have it when you don't need it.
Hey, Patty, it's Brian again. I kind of think you answered my question, but I'll ask anyways. Is it limited to specific file types, the attachments?
No, anything that's on your hard drive. Yep. So, you know, it's good for putting a Word document, policy and procedure, or for a screenshot if it's something new. Like I know a lot of clients, the scheduling application that has 5 million icons, a lot of clients add screenshots at the beginning when they're trying to get used to the application of what all those icons mean. So that's a good example of, you know, the first 3 or 4 times you run around integration testing, you might want it there and afterwards not. So by putting it just at the test step level, it gets it out of the way when you don't want it anymore. Okay, so now in tasks, there was a change made, and hopefully this will show for me, to show both workflows and tasks in this window. So this number 16 here, besides order access, means that it's in 16 places that it's in use. And so it'll start by showing the scenarios at the top, and now down at the bottom, and this one doesn't have any, it'll show the workflows at the bottom. So here the scenarios, these are all the scenarios, and this is task is used in, and here are all the workflows. If people aren't aware, you know, it's not 100% my favorite piece of functionality. If I click here, it's going to take me to that scenario, but it's going to take me to a filtered list. And this is where this step is. But you see, it takes you to a filtered list. So you can't really tell where it is in the script, but if you get here and are confused and you want to see the scenario, you just have to take that filter off, and then it'll show you the whole script. So we know we're looking for task 2610, and you pretty much need to maybe scroll to find it because it doesn't really show you where it is. There is an enhancement request in to fix that. I'm not sure where that's going to come in the list of priorities. But it is, it is really important. So our ideal is that you create workflows that are all, tasks. So you create workflows for all of the solutions that you are supporting, and you use those workflows to build out your initial regression test scripts. And then once you start building your integration test scripts, you use those same workflows in your integration test scripts. So it is nice to be able to say, either in your workflows or in your tasks, I know it's in use. I know it's in this scenario, or I know it's in these two scenarios. I talked about functional test rounds. So creating a functional test round now, when you create, excuse me for that. When you create a new test round and you're choosing functional test scripts, when you click next, it now gives you a start and end date, whereas before it only gave you a start date. A new feature was added that when you remove a test script from a test round, so all these are in here. If I go in and I say I want to remove one, sorry, what's one? Say I decided I wanted to remove this one. When I remove it, if I rerun my test planning report, it will remove it from the invites. So that's important if there's, you're getting ready for a round of testing and you've put together a dashboard and it's got 20 scenarios on it, and some team tells you we can't start, we have to do a separate round, we're not ready or whatever, and you've got 4 or 5 scripts that they're involved in. When you take those scripts out and rerun your test planning and rerun your invites, it will remove them so they don't get unnecessary invites. The other one I talked about was the test round invitations are now based off the roster and not off the user records, which is why it's really, really important before any round of testing to come in here and to look at your roster and make sure this is correct. Make sure there are no blanks. If there's, 4 or 5 people on the same thing and you know that some of them are away, make sure you remove the ones who are away and then do your test planning and your invites. For plans, when you create a new plan and you say it's spreadsheet, it now automatically goes to the spreadsheet view when you click save. So obviously you want it to be in this spreadsheet view. When you change the activity status, so if I go back here to plans and I go into this one that I happen to have around, so if I right click on this activity and do edit activity, and part of my edit is saying that the status of it is issue, when I click save here, it pops open the new issue form to allow you to enter the issue. As I said before, there still is the option to right click or to double click here and choose issue. And if you do that, then what you need to do is you need to right click here and do log issue. And then it'll pop open that new window as well. Within here, you didn't used to be able to filter on blanks here. So you would have to do page size all or scroll or whatever to see if you had any that weren't assigned to anybody. Now instead, there's a blank there and it allows you to filter on blank. So you can see all of my activities do have somebody assigned to them. And then the last one I can't show, but like I said, we had a client who during a merger was using plans for tracking continuity of care documents. And so there was like 70-something thousand records. So we improved the performance so that they could do that. Those are all the things that I had to show today. The one thing that I will say is for next month, somebody, one of our clients has asked us to do a little demo of how to create a scenario from scratch. And so we hope to put that together for next month. And like I said, I hope the month after that or sometime this fall that we will do a demo of Merge for those of you who have multiple projects out there and want to know how to address merging them. Are there any questions from anyone else?
Can I ask another question, Patty?
Absolutely.
On the workflow, I think the demo of a workflow or creating a test script would be great. In terms of utilizing the workflows and finding workflows, is there any enhancement requests or anything in the works to make that search better, or like categorize the workflows by some way to find them a little bit easier?
So, I mean, you're saying like Transit 4 had an advanced search function, there's a whole bunch of stuff and you're missing that. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, so like if I'm looking specifically for lab workflows or PathNet workflows for Cerner specifically, like
Yeah, so
being able
ones
to
that were,
just do a search on anything related to that and see what it pulls back, kind of
yeah,
thing.
so we used to have that feature and function. Can you do me a favor, Brian? Can you just send me an email with the specific searches that you would like to have?
Okay, yeah, I
So
didn't want to
you're saying
duplicate
anything
any
that's,
current
yeah,
requests.
no, and there, so I think we did improve this, but I don't remember what the improvements were. I'd have to go back and look at the notes. But you're saying you want to basically be able to, where it's name, number, and description here, you'd want to be able to also have it, look for anything that has the service of lab in it. So if back at the task level here, if it was related to a lab service of any kind, you would want to be able to find all the workflows here that were tied to a lab service. Whereas now, if you put in lab here, it's just going to find workflows that say lab over here or say lab over here.
Right, yeah, service and subservice would be
Yeah.
useful.
I mean, I guess his thought was when he coded it that your description should say lab, for example, or something in your naming should say lab. But I appreciate that that's not always the case. So service and subservice, and think about it before you email me to see if there's other things that you've been looking for in that search. Okay,
Okay, sure thing. Thank you.
no problem. Anything from anyone else? Okay, if not, thank you, everybody. Have a great day.
Thank you.